Tom Felton, aka Malfoy, landed the role of a lifetime at the age of 12. For Tom, landing a role in one of the biggest film franchises of all time was obviously considered a blessing. A guaranteed launchpad, financial security, instant name recognition, and a fan base that follows you wherever you go. However, every now and then, that same role can become a dementor that sucks your soul and a shadow that you can't outrun. A character so iconic that it consumes the actor completely.
With Hermione, kicking back is where you'd find it. Found me in the library, half naked with Hermione.
While the original Harry Potter trio will always be remembered for their characters, all three of them have actively tried to move on to other roles and express themselves in different avenues. However, Tom on the other hand, never really left Hogwarts, and has stayed on the side of the character's creator, which resulted in him receiving a tsunami of hate from a large section of the fans of the Wizarding world. So why and how has Malfoy become the last dancing at the party 15 years after the lights turned on? In 1999, 2 years after The Philosopher's Stone was released in book form, Warner Bros. Bought the rights to the Harry Potter IP and began their initial search for the cast through the lens of director Christopher Columbus.
Probably out of everyone in those early days, the most experienced actor.
Scrap oil. I'm not.
I'd done a few films before and a few TV things, and I was purely up there because my agent had said you should go.
Did you read the books to start with?
I had no idea what it was, no idea. Went for an audition for it and everyone was talking about it.
I remember one of the first things they asked at the interview is, what is your favourite scene in the book? And there was a row of us, about 7 of us, and of course I hadn't read it, so I just, the guy next to me said, oh, Gringotts, I love the trolls. So I just said, yeah, same as this guy, yeah, I love the trolls, they're brilliant. And straight away, Chris saw straight through that, and I'm pretty sure that gave him a little internal laugh, so that could have helped, I don't know.
At one point when we were trying to find who's going to play Harry Potter, I thought Tom was so good, let me put some makeup on him and put a scar on him and a black wig and see if he could do Harry Potter. So we tested Tom as Harry Potter in that succession of screen tests. But we realized after the screen test we felt was better for Draco Malfoy.
Out of the whole book, I'd rather be Malfoy than anyone else, because I get to be a baddie.
Originally, Tom went out for the role of either Harry or Ron, but of course became Malfoy. However, at the time of being cast in The Philosopher's Stone, Tom was actually one of the few child actors who had any sort of classical training and previous experience acting. So whenever on screen, he played the classic school bully, but with a layer of venom that was so good that it made us all hate a literal child. And by the time the series progressed and reached the darker middle chapters, Draco became an even more complex character, a cowardly antagonist that was trapped by family expectations, ideology, and fear. So to play this role with as much skill as he displayed in the last 2 films particularly, it's really a credit to how good of an actor Tom can be, especially with so much expectation hanging on the finale of a franchise of this size. But a problem Tom would face as the Potter franchise was winding down is that so much of his character is related to his looks. Even though the trio have the most screen time in the films, they can kind of blend in with the rest of the cast. But with Draco's sneer and platinum blonde hair, Tom always became that guy. His first role outside of the Harry Potter franchise was in a few B horror movies and a cameo in the 2010 comedy Get Him to the Greek. Ironically, he played himself, where Jonah Hill's character takes the piss out of him for being Malfoy.
There's a lot of cute girls in here, huh? Yeah. It's like Harry Potter in the Prisoner of Azkaban. Feel free to bring Professor Snape. Come by, we'll play some late night Quidditch. Don't worry, bro, we're dark side friendly.
Just leave it. Yeah.
In 2011, The Deathly Hallows Part 2 was released and marked the end of Tom's 10+ year reign of playing the Hogwarts bully. Refreshingly, just a few months later, he would feature in The Rise of the Planet of the Apes, this time playing a bully that abuses a bunch of monkeys. So, straight out of the gate, to the average moviegoer, Tom was already fighting an uphill battle with being typecast as a villain who hates orphan wizards and monkeys. A year later in 2012, Daniel Radcliffe featured in a Saturday Night Live sketch where he parodied the Harry Potter world by playing a depressed Harry struggling with adulting, working an autograph tour, and consistently reminiscing about the old days despite his mundane reality in the future.
Thought I'd apparate in for the weekend. Welcome the newbies. Feels like just yesterday I was here.
You were here yesterday, and the day before, which is odd considering you graduated 10 years ago.
Yes, Malfoy. Still hanging round, lurking, You can't keep living in the past, mate.
Can't believe they already made a Tom Felton biopic. If someone told Tom Felton about this, I'm sure he would have come to do it. This sketch would ultimately become an omen for what would unfold in Tom's acting career. For the next 8 years after Harry Potter, Tom's career didn't really crash. It kind of stalled. He couldn't get leading roles, there was no award buzz, and there was no big reinvention moment. He was still getting cast, but kind of relegated to taking smaller horror film roles, direct-to-streaming thrillers, and ensemble projects where his name was recognizable but never central. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, when you're carrying around the weight of one of the most iconic antagonists in pop culture history, anything less than reinvention looks like regression. The brutal truth is that Potter didn't just give Tom a career, it gave him an identity that the public would struggle to let go of. And over time, instead of fighting that identity, sometimes it's just better to start leaning into it. And this is where to some, Tom became a walking cringe magnet, as he started to post on social media during the 2020 COVID lockdowns. You see, in 2008, Tom released a cover song on YouTube, which now has over 8 million views. He then soft-launched a music career in 2010 with the release of a single called If You Could Be Anywhere, which today has over 14 million plays on Spotify. So when COVID rolled round, he was keen to whack out the guitar and vocals for his loyal TikTok followers. However, many of his improvised songs that he was creating for fun always seemed to revolve around the lyrics of Harry Potter, and in particular, Hermione.
Hermione, kicking back is where you'd find it. Kissing underneath the willow whomping palm trees on the island of yeah, Hermione. Pansy weren't right for me, claims that I'm a cheat. Found me in the library, half naked with Hermione. Tried to tell her we were working on a spell together. My one works better whenever she takes her dress off.
Since Harry Potter has ended, Emma Watson has stated in multiple interviews that she had a childhood crush on Tom when she was 10 and he was 12, which of course led the Potter fandom to make fanfiction, so many speculated that he read it. Even though they are still really good friends to this day, it is a little bit weird to be singing about being half naked in the library with Hermione as a 30-plus-year-old. But it's not just his songs that gave people the impression that he hasn't really moved on from Potter. Every other post on his social media has references to the Wizarding World, whether it's reminiscent clips from behind the scenes, promotions for Harry Potter merch collabs, or just straight up atting old co-stars, in particular laying on Daniel Radcliffe's Hollywood star on the Walk of Fame, which kind of gave off the vibe of a guy you knew from school trying to reminisce about the past and the glory days, even though it's been 15 years. In 2022, Tom released a memoir called Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard. It was framed as a way for Tom to reflect, heal, and move forward in his life. And in part of the book, he talked about how he was grateful for being stitched into the tapestry of Harry Potter. In a way, the tendency some people have to conflate the character with the actor is a compliment. I don't want in any way to overstate my contribution to the world of Harry Potter and the effect this phenomenon has on people's lives. If I hadn't turned up to audition that day, somebody else would have had the part. They would have done it well, and the whole project would have been largely the same. But there is some gratification in knowing that my performance crystallized people's notion of the character, even if it meant they occasionally mistook fantasy for reality. In an interview in promotion for the book, Tom also discussed his depression after the series ended, and struggles with feeling lost without the structure of Hogwarts.
I think even the word rehab has such a connotation that should be completely eradicated. Rehabilitation is... Because my mum struggled with it. She was like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, Mum, I'm not using anything, or particularly the substances or my choice of life are not the problem. They're symptoms of something else that's going on. So I was lucky enough in Los Angeles after really sort of relearning. It's one thing auditioning as a 12-year-old, okay? All you got to do is turn up and just look remotely like the guy and bullshit about that, you know what Gringotts is, and then... here you are. It's another thing to really learn the craft and actually and work on it and care about it, which I do massively. So it took me a long, hard few years to sort of apply myself to get that right. My sort of breakdowns or highs and lows, you know, I just feel like you can't celebrate the rain without, you can't celebrate the sun without acknowledging the rain. And I hadn't acknowledged the rain for a long time. I hadn't been home. My intervention and my time in rehabilitation was not to do with any particular substance or with any particular thing that I was doing. It was more a case of life can be better and it's okay to crumble sometimes. So the reason why I made sure that they're in their book, because if anyone else has or is going through that or knows people, it's okay.
In the interview, he continued on about how he had to rediscover himself as an actor, and how he had to reshift his life from the consistency that the Potter films provided.
The value of a 9 to 5, and 9 to 5 is said obviously because that's the sort of general hours of it, but this consistency, and I know people get pissed off with having to wake up when it's raining to have to go to work, and I know they look forward to going home to watch the next Potter film afterwards. I didn't have that. I was at the whim of whenever they wanted me there, and also most of the days I was at the Lucent Studios for well over 1,000 days in my time. Most of them not used, as in you put your wig on and you get ready and you sit in a room with no one else, and you luckily I had my brother and I had friends on it, but it's not exactly how teenagers sort of grow up, and I was lucky to have enough sort of normal muggle experience to be able to sort of balance it out. But yeah, it was a bit jarring when things all finished, which was kind of really nice. I just finished my first play, and
oh yeah, in London, right?
Yeah, it was in London. Yeah, and actually I saw Mr. Potter a few days ago, and I thanked him for how many people that he's brought to the theatre. A theatre is something that's really dear to my heart and my mum's. So I got to have my first 9 to 5 really for the last 18 weeks. I've had to be at a certain point at a certain time and make sure that I deliver, and it's a rewarding part of our progression sometimes in life, and I don't think we should underestimate how important that can be.
And though, you know,
this is not a self-help book, by the way.
While this honesty is refreshing, this book kind of once again reinforced that Harry Potter wasn't just his biggest role, it was also the emotional peak of his life. Compare that to Daniel Radcliffe, who actively jokes about hating fame, or Emma Watson, who pivoted into protesting, or Rupert Grint, who vanished into weird indie films and property development. Tom's story almost felt trapped in the past. So with a few roles in smaller movies and brief stints in the West End, the nostalgia tour was running on fumes. However, Tom would be gifted a monumental present from his overlord in the form of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. For those of you who don't know, The Cursed Child is a stage play written by J.K. Rowling that focuses on Harry's and Draco's sons, time travel, alternate realities, and a version of the wizarding world that many fans pretend simply doesn't exist. So when it was announced on June 5th, 2025 that Tom Felton would reprise his role as Draco Malfoy on the stage, the internet reacted instantly, with many agreeing that he was the perfect choice, but also still lingering around the franchise. Tom Felton is like a wife guy, except in his case, the wife is the Harry Potter franchise. 31 minutes total of screen time across 7 movies is his entire personality. On the 11th of November 2025, Tom made his Broadway debut in The Cursed Child, which seemed like the moment he had been gagging for years, and almost got brought to tears.
I need a favor.
Now, we can't really discuss why Tom Felton has attracted some hate without talking about the J.K. Rowling controversy. Now, if you've been living under a rock, in 2019, J.K. Rowling went from beloved author to one of the most divisive figures in modern pop culture. What originally started as a handful of tweets about sex and gender, and an ongoing public battle over trans rights. Rowling has framed these views as a defense of women's spaces and sex-based rights. However, critics and members of the LGBT community argue that her comments invalidate trans identities and are essentially discrimination. This ultimately put all of the cast of the films in an awkward situation, having to respond to these comments and essentially state their stance. First up was Daniel Radcliffe, who released a statement in 2020 in connection with the Trevor Project, which affirmed that trans women are women. To all the people who now feel their experience of the books has been tarnished or diminished, I am deeply sorry for the pain these comments have caused you. I really hope that you don't entirely lose what was valuable in these stories to you. After this, both Emma Watson and Rupert Grint echoed with responses of similar sentiments, condemning J.K. Rowling's comments. However, on the 8th of June 2025, during the red carpet for the Tony Awards, Tom was asked about J.K. Rowling's views.
How does the sort of Twitterverse controversy around J.K. Rowling's views impact you at all, or impact your work on the world at all?
No, I can't say it does. I'm not really that attuned to it. The only thing I always remind myself is that I've been lucky enough to travel the world. Here I am in New York, and I have not seen anything bring the world together more than Potter.
and she's responsible for that, so I'm incredibly grateful.
Now, this response had people on one side of the spectrum giving him respect for not biting the hand that feeds him, and another side that was completely furious that he wouldn't condemn her comments. A coward just like Malfoy. Funny that Draco Malfoy turns out to be the best of the lot. I'm not really attuned to it. In other words, they don't affect me, so I can't bring myself to care. Thank goodness someone in that franchise learned not to bite the hand that feeds them. Despite many of the LGBT community now believing that Tom was complicit, implicated, and now making J.K. Rowling even more money, Tom's biggest issue with his haters wasn't what he said, it was that they believed that he didn't say enough. In a world where silence is treated as a statement, neutrality often becomes guilt by association. However, since that red carpet moment, Tom hasn't said anything else regarding the situation and done what he's always done. Stayed polite, stayed vague, and stayed close to the Harry Potter orbit. Today, Tom is still on Broadway through 2026 with The Cursed Child. Night after night, he walks back into Hogwarts, slips on the blonde wig, and plays an older version of the boy who made him famous. For some people, that's depressing. For others, it's poetic. And for Tom, it seems like something closer to peace. Outside of the wizarding world, there are signs that he's still trying to stretch himself as an actor. He's been the star of many B-movies, but is also set to star in a new horror film alongside Zazie Beetz. However, saying this, in 2026, Tom became an unlikely mascot for the Chinese New Year. You see, the Chinese translation of the name Malfoy is apparently Ma-Ir-Fu, which apparently contains the words for horse and fortune. This led to Chinese households and even malls who usually hang fuzi, which are like red square papers printed with the Chinese word for prosperity. These also included cutouts of Tom as Malfoy. With the new HBO Harry Potter series dropping later this year and the trailer being revealed to the world, in a recent interview, Thomas stated that he's actually contacted the next Draco, Lox Pratt.
Draco, yes?
Yeah, we've I've sent word.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's really important. It's very different from when we were entering things that don't exist. There's quite a lot of weight now on, yes. So the last thing I'm going to do is offer anything other than say, here's my phone number.
Yes.
Here's my address to his parents as well as him, and to anyone else there. Like, you know, I can't offer you advice. This is your journey. Have as much fun as possible.
Yeah.
Take as many pictures as you can. Steal as many props as you can. They'll be worth a fortune. But also, if you do need a word of encouragement or questions to ask, I'm there. So I'm sort of happily taking a step back.
That's the healthy attitude. Yeah,
I mean, so.
When you zoom out, the question stops being, why can't Tom Felton move on from Harry Potter, and becomes, why should he? The franchise didn't just give him fame, it gave him a lifelong audience, generational relevance, and a safety net that most actors would kill for. I mean, if I was in Tom's position, I'd be doing the same exact thing and rinsing anything remotely Harry Potter for as long as possible. However, that choice has cost him some credibility in some circles, earned him mockery to others whenever nostalgia gets uncomfortable. But if we look at this even more zoomed out, it's genuinely remarkable how none of these child actors from Harry Potter aren't crack addicts and living a life of a downward spiral. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. It really does mean a lot to me. If you want to listen to me on the go, all of my videos are now available on Spotify, so make sure to go follow me over there, along with my Instagram at FatMema. And while you're still here, like this video, subscribe, and comment below what you want to see next. As always, I'll see you in the next one.